Hello, good evening, and a warm welcome to all the participants who've joined us in this Kings of Capital webinar. Today, we have amongst us a special guest speaker, Mr. Sanjay Shah, who is the founder and MD of Prudent Corporate, a company whose stock we own in several of our portfolios. We shall kick off today's webinar with a talk by Mr. Shah, followed by Q&A, which would be moderated by Tej Shah, who is the fund manager for the Kings of Capital portfolio. Post the discussion with Mr. Shah, Tej will move on to give an update on the KCP portfolio and thereafter open the floor for Q&A. I'll now hand over the floor to Tej to kick off the proceedings. So Tej, over to you.
Thank you, Arjun. So guys, as Arjun mentioned, it's a very special webinar because we've got the founder and managing director of one of our investee companies, Sanjay Shah, on the webinar. Things first, as a disclosure, clients of Marcellus and I are invested in Prudent Corporate. We've been very happy shareholders since late 2022 when we first bought the stock. The stocks tripled for us, and we continue to hold Prudent Corporate across multiple schemes. But to be very clear, this webinar is not an implicit stock recommendation. We've just got Sanjay Bhai on the webinar, like previously we've got management teams of our other investee companies on the webinar. More importantly, to get business insights from him, to understand the journey of how he's built such a prolific business, one of the leading mutual fund distributors in India. To introduce Sanjay Bhai, he's a chartered accountant by qualification. He's the founder of Prudent Group. He's the managing director of Prudent Corporate Advisory. He's previously worked with various industries before laying the foundation of Prudent in the year 2000. And he's spearheaded various initiatives across verticals over the past 2 decades at Prudent. Under his leadership, Prudent has emerged as the second largest non-bank distributor of mutual funds in India. And I would tell you this, Prudent Corporate will generate over about 200 crores of free cash flow a year this year, which would quite easily put it amongst the top 1% of Indian businesses basis free cash flow. And becoming such a large generator of free cash flow in India is a huge thing because you have to deal with competition, regulations, various stakeholders, so on and so forth. So on that note, Sanjay Bhai, over to you. If you could tell us more about your journey from the beginning, how did you get this idea and how you've grown over the years?
Thank you, Tej. Thank you for giving this nice introduction and giving us an opportunity to talk to your investors directly. So that's definitely a privilege for us. I'll just share my presentations to talk to all of you.
Sure.
So, yeah. Visible?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, Tej, as you already said that I'm accountant, and if I'll talk about the career, I think I passed out in 1993 और साल की शुरुआत की मेरी career के कुछ साल I worked in the Gujarat based Ahmedabad based companies, and late 1998-99 I think as you remember about that tech boom which came in, and the mutual fund industry has started just becoming has entered into the Indian market, and I started because my last organization was having some amount of surplus liquidity और वहां से हमारा पैसा हम लोग म्यूचुअल फंड में इन्वेस्ट करते थे, and that's how I came in close touch with mutual fund industry, and I literally started liking this industry because if you look at the entire industry is driven by the intellect. So in 2000 I left my job and I started the business as a prudent fund manager. Now जब आप business चालू करेंगे always in a dilemma. So I already continued to practice as a chartered accountant and I kept my certificate of practice also alive. But in 2-3 years, I realized that I cannot ride 2 horses. So I think in 2003, I surrendered my certificate of practice and I incorporated the company which we are talking about, Prudent Corporate Advisory Services Limited. And I merged the business of Prudent Fund Manager with the Prudent Corporate. So this is how I started the business. Now, see, if you look at from 2000 to 2005-06, we continued to grow in the B2C segment because career ki शुरुआत के अंदर I used to have the relationship managers and they used to handle the customers' business wealth. However, in 2005-06, I was seriously contemplating कि अगर यहाँ से significant growth अगर मुझे इस business के अंदर करना है तो which kind of area where I should focus more. And I found that if you look at globally also at that point of time, there was a very prominent what you call the business model called the partner network or the platform business, right? Globally also Merrill Lynch, frankly, not Merrill Lynch, Fidelity, even JP Morgan, everybody provide the platform to the small IFA. So we thought, let us create a platform for independent financial advisors and take care of all their worries by creating a strong backend in the tech platform, और वो सिर्फ उनका क्लाइंट एडवाइजरी का रोल को ही करते रहे, बाकी सब कुछ हम करेंगे. सो आई थिंक दैट इज वेयर वी थॉट अबाउट मूविंग फ्रॉम B2C to B2B. एंड जो B2B का जो मेरा धंधा था वो हमने चालू रखा. एंड व्हेन वी अनाउंस अवर B2B, वी मेड इट वेरी वेरी क्लियर कि अब हमारा पूरा फोकस बिजनेस ग्रोथ के अंदर B2B की तरफ ही रहेगा. एंड वेर एवर वी आर देयर इन B2C, आई थिंक विल जस्ट कंटिन्यू दैट बिजनेस. तो वहां पर हमने ग्रोथ भी नहीं दिया. आई थिंक रीजन इज क्लियर, आई कैन टेल यू कि B2B जो मैं कह रहा हूँ पार्टनर ड्रिवन मॉडल है, उसके अंदर यू आर डीलिंग विद द एंटरप्रेन्योर. दे आर ऑलवेज सेल्फ मोटिवेटेड. वो जितना बिजनेस करेंगे उतना रेवेन्यू कमाएंगे. तो आप कहीं पे भी किसी भी फिक्स मॉडल के अंदर नहीं हो. इट्स एंटायरली वेरिएबल मॉडल. वाइल B2C जिसमें आप रिलीज मैनेजर को रखते हो, वो क्लाइंट की पोर्टफोलियो को मैनेज करता है, आप ब्रोकरेज कमाते हो, और आई थिंक यू शेयर देम दी फिक्स प्लस वेरिएबल. सो देयर वर द प्लस एंड माइनस ऑफ बोथ द बिजनेसेस, बट आई फाउंड दैट द प्योर वेरिएबल डीलिंग विद एंटरप्रेन्योर हु आर सेल्फ मोटिवेटेड इज अ मच बेटर वे ऑफ डीलिंग. एंड वहां पर बहुत बड़ा वैक्यूम था. सो आई थिंक द फर्स्ट चेंज इन अवर बिजनेस मॉडल वाज वी मूव्ड फ्रॉम B2C to B2B and we just continued then after. तो अगर आप देखोगे 2006 से आज तक, I think we continuously expanded only into a B2B segment only. So that is the second phase of Prudent between 2007 and 15. Then as you all remember, right, कि 2015 के अंदर we all started hearing about the Jan Dhan Aadhaar movement. I think a lot of UCRA has started happening कि भैया पेपरलेस काम होना चाहिए. Customer onboarding has become very very easy through Aadhaar. Aadhaar was a significant innovation. So Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile trinity की वजह से lot of innovation was going on. So we also thought that this is the financial service बिजनेस ऐसा है जहां पर बहुत सारा पेपर इन्वॉल्व था. सो वी आल्सो स्टार्टेड क्रिएटिंग अवर ओन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लेटफॉर्म इन 2015-16. और 2016 में हमने हमारा फंड बाजार लॉन्च किया, विच इज अ वेरी वेरी सिग्निफिकेंटली क्वालिटी टेक प्लेटफॉर्म टुडे. सो दैट वाज द सेकंड बिग चेंज व्हिच केम इन अवर एंटायर बिजनेस. सो इफ यू लुक एट 2016 के अंदर हमने एक बार टेक लॉन्च किया, उसके बाद वी स्टार्टेड ब्रिंगिंग लॉट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट एंड वी स्टार्टेड कन्वर्टिंग ऑल ओवर ऑपरेशंस, प्रोसेसेस, कस्टमर ऑनबोर्डिंग, कस्टमर कम्युनिकेशंस, वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट्स, transaction platform, everything has been moved to the tech platform. And then after, I think we adopted technology also very significantly. However, I think still people has not appreciated our investments in tech platform, but unfortunately that COVID has realized people कि यार टेक के बगैर चलेगा नहीं. So if you look at the Prudent's growth journey, 2020 के बाद large number of IFA of the country or the mutual fund distributor of the company has joined Prudent platform. So today if I'll tell you, आज की तारीख के अंदर if we are dealing with 30,000 mutual fund distributor of the country, 50% of them has joined only post COVID with us. So they realize कि यार टेक्नोलॉजी के बगैर हम सर्वाइव नहीं कर पाएंगे. कोई अच्छा बनाया प्लेटफॉर्म होगा तो आई थिंक इट विल बी इजी for them to service. So I think that is the third phase of our growth where people started adopting the technology. And once we started getting a lot of comfort from the people, we also realized कि भैया you cannot just remain mutual fund distributors. I think gradually you also need to look at the aspirational value of your client, क्योंकि अगर client का portfolio 2-4-5 करोड़ के ऊपर जाता है तो उसको लगता है कि भाई मुझे PMS भी चाहिए, मुझे और प्रोडक्ट भी चाहिए, right? Same way the IFA also or MFD also, once his portfolio goes beyond a point, he also need other products. So if you look at last 4-5 years, we moved from a single product distributor to a multi-product, and we had a lot many products. So frankly today I think we call ourselves as a wealth manager of masses. That is how we say about ourselves. And these slides talk about where are we today. So I think it's a 24 years of history. We are happy to have 17 lakh 18 lakh customers. करीबन 26-27 लाख हमारी लाइव SIP है. 780 करोड़ रुपए हम SIP से मैनेज करते हैं. एंड वी हैव ऑलमोस्ट 30,000 डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर ऑफ द कंट्री. तो अगर ये 30,000 का अगर आपको स्ट्रेंथ बताऊं तो कंट्री में आज की तारीख में करीबन 1.5 लाख म्यूचुअल डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर होंगे. सो एवरी फिफ्थ गाय वर्क विद प्रूडेंट एज अवर बिजनेस एसोसिएट. सो दिस इज द समरी ऑफ प्रूडेंट एज ऑफ नाउ.
Great. I think stunning journey, and the power of compounding is visible when you said, right, that it took 16 years to reach 10,000 crores of AUM, and the last 20,000 crores of AUM has come only in the past 6 months. That's the power of compounding. I think virtually every listener today would be a mutual fund investor. So if you could describe, where does Prudent come in? What role does Prudent play, and what is the value add, as well as what are the economics of the business? Where does Prudent come in? How much does it earn? How much does the MFD earn?
तो आई थिंक दी ब्रीफली इफ यू लुक एट टुडे आई थिंक से एज फार एज अगर बिजनेस देखोगे तो बहुत सिंपल वेनिला बिजनेस है आई जस्ट गिव एन एग्जांपल अगर लेट अस अज्यूम इफ आई अर्न अ रूपी एज ए ब्रोकरेज सो करीबन मेरा ब्रोकरेज मानी अगर मैं 1 रुपया कमीशन का कमाता हूं तो अवर रेवेन्यू शेयरिंग विद अवर बिजनेस एसोसिएट्स इन द रेंज ऑफ 65 to 66%, 65 से 67% के रेंज के अंदर हम उन लोगों के साथ रेवेन्यू शेयर करते हैं. एज आई ऑलरेडी एक्सप्लेन यू हमारे बिजनेस के अंदर देर आर टू बिजनेस मॉडल, वन इज B2C और दूसरा हमारा B2B है. B2C के अंदर करीबन आज के तारीख में मेरे पास 12% ईएम है. 12% में भी आपको बताऊं पहले वो आई थिंक इट वाज हार्डली अबाउट 6-7%, बट हमने कार भी कुछ साल पहले एक्वायर किया था. उसमें से 50% एसेट बिजनेस मनी पार्टनर की, 50% एसेट्स के अंदर नोबडी वाज सर्विसिंग. तो वो एसेट्स को अगर मैं ऐड कर देता हूं तो करीबन 12% यूएम ऐसा है जिसमें हमारा ब्रोकरेज का कॉस्ट नहीं है. सो ऑन द बैलेंस P&L साइड इफ यू लुक एट इफ आई एन 100 rupees देयर इज 60 rupees ऑफ ब्रोकरेज कॉस्ट. बट इफ यू डिवाइड इट बाय 88% ऑफ माय B2B चैनल का EM, सो रफली वी शेयर अबाउट 65% ऑफ द ब्रोकरेज. सो 100 रुपया कमाता हूं, करीबन 60 रुपया मेरा ब्रोकरेज का खर्चा है, 40 रुपया हमारा ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट आप मानिए. उसमें से रफली 10 rupees इज माई एम्प्लॉय कॉस्ट, बिकॉज दैट इज समथिंग विच इज बिकॉज इट्स एब्सोल्युटली एम्प्लॉय ड्रिवन बिजनेस आपका. तो 10 रुपया एम्प्लॉय में जाता है, उसके साथ जुड़ा हुआ करीबन 8 रुपये का खर्चा है आपका वेरियस अदर एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव रेंट एंड एवरीथिंग. सो रफली योर एक्सपेंडिचर इज इन द रेंज ऑफ 78 rupees, और 22 रुपया जो मेरा बचता है विच इज आइदर यू टेल इट EBITDA और PBT दोनों सेम है, बिकॉज डेप्रिसिएशन जो आता है उतना ही मेरा अदर इनकम है. सो आई थिंक EBITDA PBT इज मोर और लेस सेम. सो करीबन 22 रुपए मेरा PBT है, 4-5 रुपए आप टैक्स का निकाल दीजिए, 17 रुपए मेरा प्रॉफिट है. सो दिस इज द यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स. वी बिलीव दैट it's a very strong what you call the operating leverage story also, because वो जो 20-18 रुपए का खर्चा है वो आई थिंक हमारा मानना है कि दी टॉप लाइन विल ग्रो एट अबाउट 18-20% ओवर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, बट मेरा बीच का खर्चा 18 रुपया जो है वो 18-20% से नहीं ग्रो होगा. सो आई थिंक इवन दो विल ग्रो एट लेट्स से 18-20%, you have a very strong operating leverage story. So this is about the unit economics. And you asked me about the value proposition of Prudent as an organization. So these are the 6 very high data points which I'm just trying to say that why Prudent is uniquely positioned as an organization. So as you knew, we are representing a industry which has a huge growth potential. Even though आज की तारीख में हम 60-65 लाख करोड़ की इंडस्ट्री हो चुके हैं, but we believe that it is just we just scratch the surface. I think there's a huge growth wave which is available. Second, we are uniquely positioned in business because it's a B2B2C platform जहाँ पर it's a very strong duopoly. मैं हूँ और I think we have the largest competitor called हमारा which is NJ. So there are only 2 people who are very very strong. Then I think we are very strongly positioning ourselves into a physical and the digital both. तो physically advice provide करते हैं, digitally execution provide करते हैं. It's a business which is intellect driven. तो कोई manufacturing है नहीं कि आपको कहीं पैसा लगाना है. Once you create the system and setup, I think you always generate the significant amount of cash. As I told you, we are the market leader. I think our entire business is based on the SIP, and as I already explained you, we always position as a multi-product distributor.
Okay, great. So when we made the investment, even today we get questions from investors that Prudent is super profitable. It has all of these value propositions, provides a lot of value to the distributor and the investor. But like in any other industry in India, बहुत competition आ गया है, आ जाएगा ये profit को देख के. So if you could describe how are you different from competition? What is the competitive landscape like? Also, what is the market like? How large is the market in terms of size, or what is the potential of the market?
ओवरऑल आई थिंक जैसे मैंने आपको बताया हमारा मानना है कि whenever you look at any industry, I think best barometer for us to look at would be the developed market like US, right? कि वहां पर ग्रोथ कैसे हुआ है. और normally I think the developing market or the we normally look at always this kind of industry, that is our benchmark. वो वहां पर जैसे ग्रोथ है ऐसा ही इंडिया में भी ग्रोथ होना चाहिए. सो आई जस्ट शो यू वन स्लाइड विच इज वी ऑलवेज टॉक अबाउट द US के अंदर म्यूचुअल फंड का जो सिग्निफिकेंट ग्रोथ आया ना, वो 1980 के बाद बेबी बूमर जो हुआ था वहां पर which we call it a significant growth on population. Plus 80s के अंदर US के अंदर they came out with a 401k kind of a taxation changes where people were allowed to invest in the mutual fund and they'll be given a tax exemption. So मैं मान रहा हूँ कि म्यूचुअल फंड जो यूएस के अंदर 401 के मूवमेंट था वो इंडिया के अंदर आई थिंक SIP इज बिकमिंग द 401 मूवमेंट. एंड इफ यू लुक एट यूएस का पर कैपिटा इनकम 80 से 2000 के बीच के अंदर 3 गुना बढ़ा था, बट उसका म्यूचुअल फंड एम करीबन 52 टाइम्स बढ़ा हुआ था. सो वी एज्यूम दैट अगर सेम स्टोरी इंडिया में होनी अगर रिपीट होगी तो हम एज्यूम करते हैं कि इन दिस अमृत काल फ्रॉम 23 to 47 our per capita income should grow by 8 times and today we are at 61 lakh crore of AUM. I believe अगर इसी अगर मल्टीप्लाई अगर अप्लाई करोगे तो आई थिंक वी फील growth potential would be very very huge. Same, I'll just show you another slide because this is the slide which talks about कि आज की तारीख में इंडिया में कितने हाउस होल्ड है जो करीबन लोअर इनकम ग्रुप के अंदर जो 2.5 लाख रुपए से नीचे कमाते हैं, लोअर मिडिल के अंदर जो लोग 2.5 लाख से 5.5 लाख के अंदर कमाते हैं, उसके ऊपर 5.5 लाख से 27 लाख और उसके ऊपर का जो सबसे टॉप एलिट सेगमेंट है वो 27 लाख के ऊपर कमाता है. If you look at the projection, which is based on a lot of third-party data, from 18 to 30, we are expecting that कि आपका जो पहला जो 2 segment है, which is your high net worth individuals and upper middle class, they are likely to grow significantly. So आज की तारीख में हमारे पास करीबन, so if you look at upper middle class and higher middle class, every 4th guy fall into that category. मानी 21 प्लस 30 24% लोग वहां पर है जो हो जाएंगे आपके 50%. सो मैं समझता हूं कि एज पर कैपिटा इनकम इंक्रीजेस यू विल हैव अ ह्यूज पोटेंशियल ऑफ ब्रिंगिंग दैट मनी इनटू द इन्वेस्टमेंट. सो मेरा मानना है कि पोटेंशियल बहुत बहुत स्ट्रांग है. एंड आई थिंक दिस स्लाइड्स एक्सप्लेन यू वेयर वी आर यूनिकली पोजीशन. तो आज की तारीख में हो क्या रहा है, इफ यू लुक एट द वेल्थ मैनेजमेंट के अंदर सब लोगों को 1 करोड़ 2 करोड़ 5 करोड़ के ऊपर वाले कस्टमर को ही टैप करना है, किसी को नीचे ग्राउंड लेवल पे जाना नहीं है. एंड अगर ग्राउंड लेवल पे जाना है तो आइदर यू हैव द टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड प्लेटफॉर्म विच डजंट प्रोवाइड द एडवाइस, सो दे आर रीचिंग आउट टू एवरीबडी सेइंग कि भी आप हमारे यहाँ पर आके DIY काम करो. सो नोबडी ट्राइंग टू एड्रेस द स्मॉलर एंड द मास रिटेल. अगर आज का भी अगर आप इफ यू लुक एट माय करंट AUM पर इन्वेस्टर 1 लाख करोड़ और मेरे पास 20 लाख क्लाइंट, तो करीबन 5.5 लाख रुपए मेरा एवरेज है. तो ये जो सेगमेंट है मेरा विच इज अ वेरी वेरी क्वालिटी सेगमेंट. एंड ये जो आप नीचे राइट एंड बॉटम साइड पे देखोगे कि दी मास रिटेल HNI एफ्लुएंट का जो सेगमेंट है जहां पर प्रूडेंट इज वेरी वेरी स्ट्रांगली पोजीशन. तो मेरा मानना है कि कंपटीशन है बट हमारे लिए मार्केट भी बहुत बड़ा है. एज आई एक्सप्लेन कि भाई ग्रोथ भी बहुत ज्यादा दिख रहा है. एंड नाउ फ्रेंकली वी ऑलरेडी प्रूवन आवरसेल्व्स. हमारे पास 30,000 लोग ग्राउंड पे काम कर रहे हैं. सो पीपल आर नाउ ऑल्सो कंफर्टेबल विथ मी टेक्नोलॉजी. सो आई थिंक ओवरऑल वी आर सो स्ट्रांगली पोजिशन दैट यहाँ से जो भी ग्रोथ आएगा उसका डिस्प्रोपोर्शनल बेनिफिट हमें मिलना चाहिए.
Great. So I think this is a slide which helpful for me as well, where I can position Prudent and where it's different from a bank, from a fintech, from a wealth manager. Before I pose the next question, I would request our listeners to please put in any questions that you have for Sanjay Bhai in the Q&A box. At I would say about 6:30, 10 minutes from here, we would take questions from the audience and we would pose them to Sanjay Bhai for a good dialogue on this industry and the business that he's built. So my next question has been, when we see, when we talk to banks, we hear them also talk about technology. When we talk to fintechs, of course, we hear only about technology. How have you approached technology? How have you tried, B2B2C business to implement technology so that it is a really scalable model? Although, have you seen that benefit flow through in the P&L? We've seen so many businesses which are great at technology, but not great for shareholders. Eventually, it has to result into benefits on the P&L and eventually free cash flow. So if you could talk about the technology angle, how has it been great for scale, for customers and for shareholders?
So Tej, if you look at this is the business जिसमें आप you deal with a lot of retail customers, right? And I think the बहुत ज्यादा पेपर का इन्वॉल्वमेंट था. सो आई कैन टेल यू फ्रेंकली द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट प्लेटफॉर्म विच वी क्रिएटेड इन द टेक्नोलॉजी इज द फंड बाजार. And I can tell you anybody who will go on the fund bazaar will definitely say that it is one of the best platform from the point of view of execution. तो हमने किया क्या है कि we always believe that this is the business जहां पर पैसा पिक्चर में आता है. And once that money comes in, we always talk about greed and fear, right? Market तेजी में है तो people will say कि नहीं मैं खुद ही अपना investment करूंगा. जब market मंदी में है तो everybody comes under the pressure and they might take a wrong call of redeeming at a I think non-appropriate time. So मेरा मानना है कि execution and all other activity has to happen on through technology जहाँ पर paper के लोग नहीं होना चाहिए. However, on the ground there is a strong need of assistance. So I can tell you there are developed market like US also. वहाँ पर एक report है Morningstar का और सबका which says that advisors add lot of value on the ground. Roughly about 1.5 to 2% return they add because of their proper handholding. So I think that is where Prudent has uniquely positioned कि हम लोग मास रिटेल करते हैं. ये चार्ट आप देखोगे उसमें लेफ्ट हैंड साइड के अंदर बहुत सारे टेक्नोलॉजिकल प्लेटफॉर्म विच वी हैव क्रिएटेड इज प्रोवाइडेड. हमारे पास फंड बाजार है जिसमें टुडे इफ यू लुक एट एनी काइंड ऑफ प्रोडक्ट ऑन द इन्वेस्टमेंट साइड, इफ यू वांट टू इन्वेस्ट एवरीथिंग कैन बी डन बाय यू टेक्नोलॉजिकली. हमने दूसरा क्या किया है, पूरा फंड बाजार हमने हमारे पार्टनर को उनके लॉगिन के अंदर प्रोडक्ट कनेक्ट के फॉर्म में दिया गया है. सो टुडे लेट अस अज्यूम यू आर माय कस्टमर और मानी आप मेरे पार्टनर के कस्टमर हो, यू कैन कॉल योर पार्टनर कैन लुक एट योर पोर्टफोलियो, ही कैन इनिशिएट द ट्रांजैक्शन, वी कॉल इट पीआईटी, पार्टनर इनिशिएशन ट्रांजैक्शन, पार्टनर इनिशिएटेड ट्रांजैक्शन फ्रेमवर्क. तो पार्टनर इनिशिएट करेगा ट्रांजैक्शन, रिडेम्पशन, एसआईपी इनिशिएशन या कुछ भी, उसका एक मेल जाएगा या व्हाट्सएप जाएगा, ही हैज टू प्रोवाइड द ओटीपी इन हिज लॉगिन एंड हिज ट्रांजैक्शन गेट एक्सिक्यूटेड. सो व्हाट वी डिड इज we try to do a mix of both, a partner as well as client. And then once we were successful on the financial product, we also converted our insurance also through Policy World. हमारा आज की तारीख में लेस जैसे वी हर्ड अबाउट स्मॉल केस, राइट? हमारा भी छोटा सा एक स्मॉल केस का पोर्टफोलियो हम रन करते हैं थ्रू मॉडल स्टॉक पोर्टफोलियो. दिस समथिंग व्हिच वी आर आल्सो वर्किंग ऑन द लोन साइड थ्रू क्रेडिट बास्केट. सो एंड वी हैव अ स्ट्रॉन्ग टेक्नोलॉजी प्लेटफॉर्म. एंड इफ यू लुक एट द ग्राउंड टुडे, we cover 100% of the states, almost 98% of the cities and district, almost 85% of talukas and 88% of pin code where we have the investors, and physically also we are present everywhere. So this is a very good mix of physical and digital, and which is probably helping us to capture the momentum.
Okay, great. And if you could, these are the positives. We're living also in a time where markets are going up every day. If you could talk about what 2007, 8, 9 were like, which was, we saw 50% correction, followed by about 4 to 5 years of market going nowhere. What did you go through, given that you're so closely associated to capital markets even then? And I'm sure psychologically, being in a market like this versus being in 2008 would have been very different.
Yeah, so I think Tej, I can tell you frankly, 2008-9 was a very, very bad time overall from the point of profitability. I think pressure on the P&L, and as I told you in the initial phase only, we expanded significantly in 2006. So 2006-2007 में हम expand कर चुके थे, and we were almost at 34-35 branches by 2007. By 2000, when the correction came in the market, because ये हमारा business जो capital market के साथ जुड़ा तो sentiment भी खराब हो जाते हैं. On one side you have the mark to market losses, on second hand so you have the redemption, on third side you have the sentiment also, which is very, very bad. So you start getting pinched from all the side. But the conviction for the business from my side was so strong. I can tell you 2008-9 में हमने आज तक का सबसे ज्यादा expansion उसी phase में किया था.
Wow.
We added maximum branches because I think I was almost on the verge to finish my cash. जितना भी cash हमने deploy कर लिया था, because we always understood that I think the India is on the cusp of huge growth on the GDP side, per capita income side, and mutual fund is becoming a very, very strong mainstream vehicle for the retail investors. So I think I always learned that you should be there when the tide turns. आप टाइट टर्न होने के बाद एंटर करोगे तो आपको उसका फायदा नहीं मिलेगा. सो फ्रैंकली आई कैन टेल यू द बिगेस्ट एडवांटेज व्हिच वी गॉट इज ऑन टू साइड. वन वाज 2008-9 का हमारा एक्सपेंशन, और दूसरा 2015-16 का हमारा टेक एडॉप्शन वेयर नोबडी वाज थिंकिंग अबाउट. सो दीस आर द टू टर्निंग पॉइंट फॉर अस. टेक्नोलॉजी भी हमने 2015-16 में बना दी थी तो उसका हमें फायदा मिला 2020 के बाद. एंड सेम में 8-9 का जो हमारा मंदी का टाइम था उसमें हमने सबसे ज्यादा ब्रांचें करी, वो भी हमने 10-11-12 के बाद हमें उसका भी बहुत ज्यादा फायदा मिला.
Got it. Great. So you've been a contrarian in good times and in bad times. On that note, if you could talk through what do you see as a risk to the business? What are the things that you worry about?
So I think to be very frank, there are two kind of risk which you see in any business. One would be the industry specific risk, and another would be your organization specific risk. So I can tell you frankly, I believe that if at all, if I foresee the risk, significant risk comes from the industry side, wherein you do not know, right? कल उठ के regulatory changes क्या आते हैं, कल उठ के market cycle क्या turn लेती है, कल उठ के इंडिया की situation क्या होती है, growth trajectory की बात करो. So these are the areas which will impact industry as a whole, which will impact Prudent also in the same way. However, only significant advantage which Prudent carry would be that हमारे पास रिटेल सेगमेंट है, हमारे पास SIP लेड बिजनेस है, उसके लिए उसकी वजह से जब भी इन लास्ट 20 years आई कैन टेल यू, जब जब मार्केट खराब साइकिल से गुजरा हुआ है उस वक्त हमारा काम अच्छा रहा है, बिकॉज रिटेल नॉर्मली डजंट गो अवे, इट इज HNI हु टेक द कॉल फर्स्ट. सो आई थिंक थोड़ा सा ही मार्केट हिलेगा, HNI दौड़ना चालू कर देंगे, रिटेल नॉर्मली रिमेन वेरी वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग. सो आई थिंक वी बिलीव दैट अगर इंडस्ट्री स्पेसिफिक रिस्क है तो प्रॉब्ली वी कैनॉट अवॉइड दैट, राइट? अगर सारी पूरी इंडस्ट्री के ऊपर आया हुआ है कुछ तो हमें भी उसका पार्ट बनना पड़ेगा, बट वी विल बी एबल टू कम आउट विद फ्लाइंग कलर्स. I think organization specific, always I keep myself awake on the technological changes, sir. Because technology is something which we are not a technology player, but हमारा technology domain बहुत strong है. So normally I tell my team कि भैया हम first नहीं होंगे, but I don't want to be the third. अगर कोई अच्छा चीज लेके आ रहा है, let us try and adopt. I cannot be the, हमने इनोवेट करना था कर चुके, but every day things are happening. So I think we keep a very close watch on technological changes and we try to adopt fast. So on the organization level, I think if I look at the change, something which is specific to my organization would be only technology.
Okay. Okay. And spoken about the mutual fund bit. We think that your mutual fund distribution network is one of the biggest assets, given that you've done so well on building out this network. How do you think of further monetizing it? You've spoken a bit about insurance. Any plans to add more to that funnel of further monetizing this network better?
So I think, yeah, I told you this, right? Because we have been trying to add a lot of product basket off lately. So I'll just show you that today, if you look at, I think we realized this much earlier. I just told you by 2020, we realized that we should not remain a single product distributors, and there will be a significant need for us to adopt all other product also. So today, if you look at, अगर 2020 के अंदर मेरी top line के अंदर 83 rupees used to come from mutual fund, now less than 80 rupees comes from mutual fund, and the insurance is becoming a lion business for us. आज के मेरी top line के अंदर 13-14 रुपए insurance contribute करता है. Another important thing which I'll just explain you कि ये 13-14 रुपया जो मैं टॉप लाइन में आ रहा है उसका सिग्निफिकेंट पैसा मेरी बॉटम लाइन में भी जाता है, बिकॉज नॉर्मली व्हाट हैपेंस दैट वी एक्सपांड द ब्रांच नेटवर्क और द बिजनेसेस थ्रू म्यूचुअल फंड, और वहां पर एक बार सेटअप तैयार हो जाता है, देन वी ऐड अदर प्रोडक्ट, वेदर वी सेल PMS, EIF, इंश्योरेंस की बात करो, ब्रोकिंग की बात करो. सो ऑल अदर बिजनेसेस आर ऑलवेज रेवेन्यू एक्टिव फॉर अस एंड ऑपरेटिंग कॉस्ट बहुत ही कम होती है. सो डेफिनेटली आई थिंक वी मूव फ्रॉम 83 to 79. मेरा मानना है म्यूचुअल फंड विल कंटिन्यू टू ग्रो इन द अबाउट 18-20% ग्रोथ मुझे दिख रहा है टॉप लाइन के अंदर, बट बाकी के सारे बिजनेसेस हमारे परसेंटेज वाइज भी कम है और साइज में भी छोटे हैं. मेरा मानना है दे विल ग्रो बेटर देन दी म्यूचुअल फंड. सो ओवरऑल आई थिंक आवर इंटरनल कॉल इज दैट म्यूचुअल फंड शुड गो बिलो 70-75% की रेंज के अंदर धीरे धीरे जाना चाहिए, सो दैट एटलीस्ट वी हैव द स्टेबल अदर बिजनेसेस.
Got it. And back to the mutual fund, right? On the SIP front, how much visibility do you generally get? You said that SIP is one of your largest sources of business. If you could talk about how has the experience been with SIPs? It's become sort of a cult. Every household today has a SIP. How does it help in business planning? How does it help in you getting more visibility, planning for the next year, budgeting, so on and so forth?
So Tej, I think we believe that in case of a retail, SIP is the best vehicle for anybody to invest who has a regular stream of income, because दो चीजें होती है, एक तो आप मार्केट टाइम से बाहर निकल जाते हो, दूसरा रूपी कॉस्ट एवरेजिंग का फायदा, अगर आप मार्केट कुछ भी नहीं करता है तो वॉलेटिलिटी का फायदा आपके फेवर में आता है. बिकॉज SIP का सबसे ब्यूटीफुल एडवांटेज ये है कि अगर मार्केट ऊपर जाता है आपको कम यूनिट मिलते हैं, मार्केट नीचे जाता है आपको ज्यादा यूनिट मिलते हैं. तो अगर मार्केट फ्लैट भी रहता है तो भी आपको 2-3% अल्फा ऐड हो जाता है बिकॉज ऑफ वॉलेटिलिटी. सो वी बिलीव दैट रिटेल के अंदर अगर आप SIP के ऊपर कॉन्सेंट्रेट करोगे तो इट विल बी वेरी वेरी इजी फॉर यू. एंड टुडे लेट्स से इफ आई कम टू एंड से तेज आप 15 साल की 20 साल की 2000 की SIP चालू कर दो, देन आई डोंट वांट टू कम एंड मीट यू आल्सो, बिकॉज देन इट गोज ऑन टू ऑटो मोड. Right. So because of that, in 2015-16, we realized that have a very strong focus on the SIP also. And उसके बाद हमारा SIP के ऊपर significant growth, I think, focus रहा हुआ है. So if you look at, this is a very important slide. और जब भी मुझे कोई पूछता है कि संजय भाई आपका AUM का ग्रोथ कैसे आएगा, what is your understanding? So मैं दो चीजें कहता हूँ इसके अंदर. Whenever you take customers' money for investments, एक तो तेज तुम खुद और बाकी सारी फंड मैनेजर फेटर्निटी में समझता हूं कि 12-15% आने वाले 10 साल के अंदर जनरेट करके देंगे आप, राइट. सो एक तो 12% हमारा AUM का ग्रोथ बिकॉज ऑफ मार्क टू मार्केट इनबिल्ट है. इफ यू बिलीव इन द इंडियाज इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ पोटेंशियल फॉर नेक्स्ट कपल ऑफ इयर्स, राइट, तो वो 12% से बढ़ेगा. प्लस SIP इज ए वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग एरिया फॉर अस. तो अगर आप ये जो लेफ्ट हैंड साइड पे मैंने चार्ट दिया उसमें देखोगे आप कि मेरा लास्ट 6 साल का 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 और 24 के अंदर, इफ यू लुक एट माय ग्रॉस फ्लो थ्रू SIP एंड माय नेट सेल्स, ओवरऑल मैं कितना नया पैसा लाया हूं. सो इफ यू लुक एट इन 5 साल का हमारा टोटल 6 साल का 25,000 करोड़ का मैंने आई कलेक्टेड 25,000 करोड़ थ्रू SIP एंड माय नेट सेल्स वर 22,000 करोड़. सो व्हाट वी से दैट अगर 10-12% आपका मार्क टू मार्केट से आएगा, करीबन SIP जितना पैसा मेरा रह जाना चाहिए. एंड वी ऑलवेज कीप अ टारगेट कि मेरा SIP का बुक जो है वो एटलीस्ट इक्विटी का 1% होना चाहिए. तो आज की तारीख में जब मैं आपसे बात कर रहा हूं, मेरा 780 करोड़ का सिप बुक है, तो करीबन 27 लाख ट्रांजेक्शन हम लोग महीने के करते हैं. एवरेज वैल्यू है आपकी 27 रुपए 28 रुपए. सो इट्स प्योर रिटेल, एक एब्सोल्यूट 27 लाख ट्रांजेक्शन हर महीने प्रोसेस करते हैं और 780 करोड़ इकट्ठा करते हैं. अब 780 को आप 12 से मल्टीप्लाई करोगे तो रफली अबाउट 9,500 करोड़, राइट. तो करीबन 10%. मेरी AUM 95,000 करोड़ की है, या तो साल की शुरुआत में मेरी AUM थी 88,000 करोड़ की, तो करीबन 11% ऑफ माई ओपनिंग AUM इज दी कंट्रीब्यूशन बाय SIP. तो 12% वो ले लीजिए, 10-11% ये ले लीजिए. तो मेरा मानना है कि 20-22% से आपको बहुत ही क्लियर विजिबिलिटी ऑफ दी ग्रोथ वुड बी सीन. ये आप ये एक चार्ट आप देखोगे, यहां पर मैंने बताया हुआ है कि SIP AUM एज ए परसेंटेज ऑफ इक्विटी है. सो इफ यू लुक एट इन FY24, अगर मेरे पास 1 लाख करोड़ का AUM आज की तारीख में, तो आप समझिए 45,000 करोड़, माने एवरी सेकंड रुपीज केम बाय वे ऑफ वो 2,000-5,000 रुपये से आया हुआ है. तो आप यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड कितना रिटेल पैसा हमने इकट्ठा किया हुआ है. सो आई थिंक दैट इज व्हाट, एंड दैट इज द पावर जो आप बताए, पावर ऑफ कंपाउंडिंग, पावर ऑफ लॉन्जिटिविटी. और रिटेल बहुत, और आज की तारीख में आपको तो ऑल्टरनेटिव नहीं है लोगों के पास. आज रिटेल के लिए वेयर विल दे गो इन इन्वेस्ट, बिकॉज टुडे थैंक्स टू म्यूचुअल फंड से ये कैंपेन, थैंक्स टू ऑल दी पॉजिटिव एक्सपीरियंस पीपल विल कैरी. सो आज का जो न्यू जनरेशन है वो FD नहीं जानता है, वो गोल्ड नहीं जानता है, रियल एस्टेट उनकी पहुंच के बाहर है. सो इफ यू दे वांट टू एक्यूमुलेट द वेल्थ व्हेन दे स्टार्ट अर्निंग एट द अर्ली एज, वी बिलीव दिस इज द बेस्ट व्हीकल, एंड दैट इज वेयर वी ऑलवेज कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड एंड विच इज पेड ऑफ ऑल्सो.
Got it. Great. No, I think this has been a phenomenal explanation of the business, and we've already started getting, we've got in a lot of intelligent questions. We'll start off with those questions. Folks, again, we've got the privilege of having Sanjay Bhai for the next 15-20 minutes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A box, and I'll ask them to Sanjay Bhai. So one investor, so we'll get this one difficult question out of the way first. Parag Patel asks, Sanjay Bhai, why have you offloaded shares of Prudent very recently? So we'll get this off.
That's a very pertinent question, very pertinent question. So I'll just tell you frankly, ये पूरी IPO जर्नी के अंदर me and my family has never came to market. I think मैंने सबसे पहले 40% मेरी खुद की पर्सनल कैपेसिटी में से ऑफलोड किया था TA एसोसिएट्स को. और आपको मैं सिर्फ बता दूं कि जब कंपनी का IPO आया, तब IPO के बाद थोड़ा स्टॉक के प्राइस में प्रेशर आया हुआ था. उसके पहले कंपनी ने कार्वी का बिजनेस एक्वायर किया था, तब पैसे की जरूरत थी, तो मैंने खुद ने कंपनी को पैसा दिया था, और वो पैसा उन्होंने मुझे वापस भी दिया था. और वो दैट मनी इट वाज लाइंग इन लिक्विड फंड. और जैसे स्टॉक पे प्रेशर आया, 1.72% वाज द स्टेक व्हिच आई एक्वायर्ड पोस्ट लिस्टिंग, इमीडिएटली लिस्टिंग के बाद. और बिकॉज वो उससे सप्लाई था, तो मैंने वो एब्जॉर्ब किया था. एंड देन ऑलवेज, बिकॉज वो जो फर्स्ट 40% मैंने डाइल्यूट किया था, वो उसी लिए किया था कि आई वांटेड टू सिक्योर माय फैमिली. सो देन आई थॉट कि नाउ इट्स द राइट टाइम, एटलीस्ट मुझे वो 1.25% दोबारा वापस लेना था. एंड देन आई स्टार्टेड थिंकिंग कि दोबारा मुझे मार्केट में नहीं जाना पड़े, इसलिए आई हैड अनदर 1% फ्रॉम माई साइड. सो $2.25 मेरी वाइफ और मेरे फादर ने एक्यूमुलेट किया था, उन्होंने वापस दिया है, और 1 टका मैंने किया है. आई थिंक दैट वाज समथिंग विच वाज रिक्वायर्ड. एंड आई थिंक this has nothing to do with view on this stock. It was the personal level, because being a promoter, you always want to keep a very huge distance between personal assets and the corporate assets. And I never wanted to come again and again to the market. So इसलिए 2.25 मैंने dilute किया है. So that's the explanation from my side, which I gave the same explanation today we filed to the exchange also. And there is no intention of coming further, because I think I don't have any other businesses. यही business है मेरा, यही पैसा दोबारा म्यूचुअल फंड के इक्विटी फंड में ही जाएगा. But I just wanted to create some good corpus. That's the only reason, और कुछ नहीं था.
Okay, great. So now with that out of the way, we go back to business. So Harsh, we are seeing a transition of mutual funds moving from regular mode to direct mode. How do you see this transition for yourself? And do you think that will have some impact? The direct mode will have some impact on your growth into the future?
So I think I can tell you, when we are talking about direct platform, I think retail investor ये समझ के direct platform में नहीं जा रहा है कि वहां पर जाने से मेरा 1 टका बचेगा. It is basically there is a huge vacuum which is there in the market. आज की तारीख में मैं मेरे IFA को भी अगर लीड देता हूँ कि भैया इसको 2500 रुपए के SIP करने जाओ, वो नहीं जाता है. Because there is huge cost of going and meeting, right? So there is a huge vacuum of servicing these people. And ये सारे लोगों के पास overnight क्या हुआ? Because once this entire onboarding access become easy, with entire broking platform which has came up, वहां पर mutual fund was available easily with a click of the button. And frankly ये सारे new age platform के लिए mutual fund एक तरीका है कस्टमर को एक्वायर करने का. And then they try to generate revenue from stock broking. Right? So मैं समझता हूं कि the direct is growing not at the cost of regular plan. Direct is growing at the cost of non-servicing by the people on the ground. अगर आज भी किसी को आप जाके मिलोगे जिसका पोर्टफोलियो डायरेक्ट प्लान में होगा, अगर उसको प्रॉपर एडवाइस करोगे, वो डेफिनेटली आपके पास आ जाएगा. So just wanted to communicate. I don't see for India as a huge market. So I think today you have what, 4.5 crore people invested into the mutual fund. तो आज कितने सारी जगह पर आपको जाने की गुंजाइश है. मैं समझता हूं both will coexist, both will grow, but I don't think they are at the cost of each other.
Okay. So Pranshu asks, is your IFA network exclusive to you, or would they have dealings with, say, an NJ, your competitor, as well? How does a typical IFA think of exclusivity?
No, he's right, because it's not like insurance जहां पर आप किसी एक के साथ बॉस बनते हो तो किसी और के साथ नहीं बन सकते हो. Here when I'm talking about 30,000 people are working or empaneled with us, they might have the direct code with a couple of AMC, couple of them might be having the code with my biggest competitor also. But by and large what we have seen is that कि एक बार कोई बंदा प्लेटफॉर्म के ऊपर आके काम चालू करता है, either he comes with me or he go to somebody else. Initial period के अंदर they'll try and explore where should they do the business, and once you give the business of some size, then people remain exclusive, even though he might have the code with other places, but normally they remain exclusive. Because say frankly आपको बताऊं, today there is a huge value addition which we provide on the tech front, on the advisory, on guiding their businesses, motivating them, driving their entire skill, everything we does for. So आज की तारीख में आप देखो मेरे पास 1300 लोगों की टीम है, उनका काम यही है B2B के इन लोगों को मिलना, इनके बिजनेस को चलाना. So there is a huge force which support them in the business, and once they are comfortable, normally they don't go. But yeah, it's not an exclusive.
Okay, fair enough. The other question which one of our participants has is, what stops an IFA or a mutual fund distributor to go directly to the mutual fund? Would they not prefer that, given the unit economics might be a bit favorable if they go directly to the AMC? How does an IFA think about that?
Today, to be very frank, I can tell you if you look at the segment which we cover, आज की तारीख में 30,000 IFA मेरे साथ काम कर रहे हैं, और अगर आप 1 लाख करोड़ की AUM को डिवाइड करके 3 करोड़ रुपए पर IFA का AUM है, उसके अंदर इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट. एंड आई कैन टेल यू फ्रेंकली, दीज ऑल द पीपल आर नॉट फुल टाइमर्स. ये उन लोगों का फुल टाइम बिजनेस नहीं है. या तो वो इंश्योरेंस एजेंट होगा, किसी बैंक का एम्प्लॉय होगा, किसी ऑफिस कहीं पे वो आइदर ही बी चार्टर्ड अकाउंट और ही बी अकाउंटेंट. सो फॉर देम दिस इज साइड बिजनेस, एंड इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर देम टू डू ऑल द एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव वर्क. As you require and plus I can tell you, as the technology becoming more and more important, people realize that they cannot create the wheels. Today we have everything, technology. Now compliance. I'll just give you a small example. अभी 2 महीने पहले एमफी रोट लेटर टू एवरीबडी सेइंग कि भैया आपके किसी क्लाइंट ने अगर वो सीनियर सिटीजन है तो उसने मिड कैप क्यों खरीदा है? Do you have the reason for that? Now, just give an example, right? They're trying to capture the customers consent, OTP based customer transaction. अभी आज ऑनलाइन पे जाओगे आपको दे टू फैक्टर ऑथेंटिकेशन, राइट? यू टू मेक श्योर दैट की मोबाइल एंड ईमेल आईडी एक्सक्लूसिव. देयर बहुत सारी चीजें ऐसी है जो हम उनको करते हैं, एंड फॉर दिस दे व्हाट दे कीप ऑन टेबल, दे कीप ऑन टेबल 10 बेसिस पॉइंट. अगर किसी का मेरे यहाँ पर 1 करोड़ का ईएम है, हम पहले दिन से उनको बताते हैं कि भैया व्हेन यू वर्क विद प्रूडेंट प्लीज मेक श्योर इफ यू विल गो डायरेक्टली विद एनी एएमसी आपको हमसे 10 पैसा 5 पैसा ज्यादा मिलेगा, पर वो आप 5 या 10 पैसा कम कमाते हो उसके सामने हम आपको बहुत सारी फैसिलिटी भी देते हैं, राइट? एंड दैट वेरिएंट वी हैव वन presentation also which says that somebody who is on my platform there is a productivity gain of 35%. अगर आप किसी आईएफए की लाइफ का अगर टाइम इन्वॉल्वमेंट देखोगे तो कस्टमर की एडवाइस के सिवा बहुत सारे काम करता है. 40 एएमसी से माथाकुटी करनी, ब्रोकरेज रिकंसाइल करना, रेट नक्की करना, देन यू रिक्वायर पीएमएस, एआईएफ, टेक्नोलॉजी, कंप्लायंस. सो इट्स द हेल काइंड ऑफ एक्टिविटी, एंड यहाँ पर आईएफए को कुछ नहीं करना पड़ता है. इट्स अ plug and play only.
So what you're saying is you're more than making it up for the IFA even economically, apart from the hassle, because of 35% better productivity, you're more than making it up for the IFA by doing all of these, providing all of these extra service. Got it. So Ravi Kiran says that you mentioned phygital mode to be one of your USPs. How do you see physical presence in the future? Do you see physical presence tapering off, or would you continue to open branches?
So frankly, because these are the physical presence doesn't have a huge cost impact for us, because pura administrative back office technology customer care everything is situated at Ahmedabad, which is our corporate office. When you have talk about the office, what you require is ground level pay. I think 2 people, 1 branch manager or support team. Now this is the business where you need to explain the IFA, right? IFA को तैयार करना है आपको, and IFA basically because वो किसी customer के पैसे को डील करता है, he also wanted to see the guy. But जो 2020 के पहले की सिचुएशन थी और बाद की सिचुएशन अगर करूं तो पहले वी यूज्ड टू से कि भैया फिजिकल प्रेजेंस वुड बी मच एसेंशियल. नाउ वी आर सेइंग कि हर एक जगह पर जाने की जरूरत है, एटलीस्ट समवेयर सेंट्रली अगर आपकी ऑफिस होगी तो पीपल विल बी कंफर्टेबल. सो इफ यू लुक एट इन द करंट ईयर वी हैव एडेड 16 ब्रांचेस, बट व्हाट वी डिड इज दिस टाइम वी एडेड इनटू अ पेरिफेरी ऑफ अहमदाबाद, पेरिफेरी ऑफ बड़ौदा, पेरिफेरी ऑफ मुंबई. सो आई थिंक देयर वी फील अगर एक आपका छोटा सा 2 मानी 5 लोगों का छोटा सा अगर ऑफिस होगा तो विच विल एड लॉट ऑफ वैल्यू टू देम, एंड कॉस्ट वाइज बहुत ज्यादा एक्सपेंसिव नहीं है प्रोपोजिशन है. सो द पॉइंट इज विल कंटिन्यू टू हैव द फिजिकल ब्रांच. मुझे लगता नहीं है कि फिजिकल ब्रांच, बिकॉज आज की तारीख में भी हम लोगों को बुलाते हैं एवरी वंस इन अ मंथ वी डू अ फिजिकल इवेंट, जहां पर बिकॉज वो जो आई कनेक्ट, बैठना, समझाना, एवरीथिंग कैन नॉट हैपन थ्रू जूम कॉल.
Right. Got it. One of the questions Amit is asking is, how do you think of building an RIA network? Is that something which will, gain more traction in the future? Is an advisory model also something that you think of?
So actually if you look at Prudent की there are now 2 subsidiary है, क्योंकि हमारा एक तीसरा सब्सिडरी ब्रोकिंग अभी भी मर्ज हो चुका है. तो we have one subsidiary Prudent जिसमें हमने RIA लाइसेंस लिख के रखा हुआ है. We thought some point of time RIA might grow, but if you look at the legality point of view से अगर मैं किसी कस्टमर से या उसके फैमिली मेंबर से एक बार रेगुलर प्लान में डील करता हूँ तो उससे मैं एडवाइजरी काम नहीं कर सकता हूँ. So today if let us assume I explain you, today we earn 90 basis point as a commission, right? अगर मैं रिटेल से 1% ब्रोकरेज देने के लिए जाऊंगा तो सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम क्या है मालूम है? कलेक्शन ऑफ फीस. हाउ कैन यू कलेक्ट फीस फ्रॉम 16 lakh पीपल? हर महीने का कलेक्शन मैकेनिज्म इज वेरी वेरी टीडियस. सो आई डोंट थिंक द RIA can become popular into a segment which I am represent. RIA will become popular only above 50 crore और उसके ऊपर या 25 करोड़ के ऊपर, जहां पर मैं सोच भी नहीं सकता हूं मेरा जाने का. So my belief is the segment which I service would be always the brokerage, or the income will come from the manufacturer only.
Okay. Chandrasekharan wants to know your real secret sauce. As in, what is it that is helping Prudent gain more IFAs or onboard more IFAs than its biggest competitor? Because competitors are also offering the same service. Competitors are also offering the same handholding. So what is it that you've done over the last 3-4 years that's differentiating you versus everyone else in the market on incremental market share of IFAs?
No, I think probably no, I think one thing which I can always say that we are a little bit ahead of curve as far as adoption of technology is concerned compared to my competitor. Second is we also started onboarding a lot of product also on our side, right? Because if you look at the competitor, they never used to sell third party products. Now they started. So we became a multi product distributors, and the tech driven model was adopted by us much earlier in advance. And I think I think there are a lot of I can another important point tell you the steadiness of my team. Today I can tell you my the people are so steady with the organization that is also helping us to gain more and more traction from the people.
And I would say last question again from Ravi. He asks, is becoming an EMC on your roadmap as well? And I'll put in another question that I've always asked. How do you think of deploying the excess cash that you have? If not an EMC, anything else that you'd like to do?
Frankly, I think I would love to do acquisition only into the segment which I represent. As of now, we are very clear that at least for near future, we don't want to be a manufacturer because manufacturer also has its own hassles. And I think it's because say the for earning that incrementally 10-15 basis points, I believe that rather I should remain very very focused on the distribution side rather than going into manufacturing. So we are very clear as of now. We'll very very remain focused on the manufacturing distribution only. And utilization of cash is definitely a big question. We have been trying to remain open for any kind of acquisition opportunities, but unfortunately हो क्या रहा है कि आज की तारीख में अगर मार्केट महंगा है तो लोगों का आस भी बहुत ज्यादा है, पक्के बनी है, right? Frankly, at the end of the day, it's a money which is belonging to all the shareholders and me also. So trying to preserve cash, at least 2-3 साल तक हम इकट्ठा करेंगे. मेरा मानना है 2-3 साल के अंदर we have a very good war chest and you have the power of equity. So my belief is we'll be able to do a good acquisition at that point of time. अगर बीच में मिल गया तो अगर बीच में मिल गया तो we are prepared. Yeah, sorry.
I'm sure you'll be able to do it. Given the example that you gave of 2008-9, you depleted almost all of your cash when everyone was thinking of risk. No, Sanjay bhai, this has been a great primer on the mutual fund industry, on your business. Thank you so much for spending time with us, for taking all of these questions and answering them so well. We'll continue with our Kings of Capital presentation from here on. So listeners, stay tuned in. And thank you, Sanjay bhai, again for doing this.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So I'll share my deck and we'll go through the usual slides on performance and of course, what are we seeing on the ground and an update on what the companies have done in Q1 FY25, given that we've got all the results for our portfolio companies through. So starting off with, laying a bit of context and background on what's happened over the past 3 to 6 months. I think finally we've seen euphoria around some of the PSU stocks, some of the cheaper PSU banks die down a bit over the past 3 to 6 months. And this is a slide we presented about, I would say about 12 to 18 months ago, where we had said that, every time post a regime change like we saw in 2020 or 2021, once we come out of a recession, we've seen that it's the PSU banks or stocks which are macro linked, which do exceedingly well. So whether it be 2003, where in the initial 1 or 2 years, SBI, Canara Bank, Bank of Baroda did exceedingly well and outperformed a HDFC or a Kotak. Whether it be 2009, again, the same phenomenon took place. And this time again, it's been PNB, SBI, Canara, which has done exceedingly well, while HDFC and Kotak have underperformed. This time around, the magnitude of underperformance has been significantly higher than the previous 2 cycles. However, what we can see is that this has started turning around a bit. So if you look at PSU banks' share price performance only versus private banks' share price performance of late, we've started to see this reversing a bit. And this financial year especially, where we've seen HDFC Bank outperform while most other PSU banks, barring you could say SBI, have started to underperform. Kotak Bank is a specific case. It is a portfolio company. We've seen that Kotak Bank has gone through that RBI ban. The RBI ban continues, and therefore Kotak Bank is an outlier. But otherwise, this financial year, we've seen a bit of change of fortunes for the private sector banks. As we speak about that, and this is coinciding with a bit of spike in slippages after about 2.5 years. We've seen asset quality come back into the picture, whether it be affordable housing, auto loans, MFIs, MSMEs, consumer loans. We've seen increase in slippages across the board. Maybe prime housing loans are the only subsegment where we've not seen increase in slippages. What we can see is part of or segments of the market where risk is the highest, they have been hit the most. Microfinance, for example, highest risk loans, they've seen slippages increase by 2x, followed by consumer NBFCs, MSMEs, autos, and affordable housing finance. So all of those sectors which had seen lending happen at 25, 26, 27% with absolutely no credit cost, that sort of arbitrage of lending at 25%, no slippages, no NPAs, while people lending at 9%, again seeing no slippages, that large gap, over the next 6 to 9 months, and that arbitrage might start vanishing. We don't have any microfinance companies in the portfolio. So far, we've not seen any of our portfolio companies report some, huge spike. However, they've started reporting slippages which are higher than what we were seeing previously in FY24. And that is something that we've been always expecting. We've been speaking about in webinars, writing about in newsletters, that FY25 as a year will be a difficult year, especially for banks, because NIMs, net interest margins, are getting crunched, and credit costs will rebound back from historically low levels. So credit costs, as I've been talking, the reason for this has been that incremental slippages have not risen that much, but the recoveries during this quarter have been lower than what we've historically seen, especially over the past 2 years. So gross slippages for Axis have been fine, but it's the net number which has been lower. And for 2 or 3 large holdings, what we've seen is that the banking sector, which is the chart on the top, has seen the red line go up, return on assets also go up, gross NPAs go down. On the other hand, say for a Kotak Bank, which used to trade at 4 times price to book, we have seen over the past 2 years a decline in the price to book multiple. So Kotak's premium over the banking sector has gone down when it comes to valuation. However, Kotak's return on assets have gone only one way. So you could say that 2015 to 19, when gross NPAs for the banking sector were going up, 4% gross NPAs all the way up to 11% for the banking sector, Kotak was still making 1.8, 1.9, 2% ROAs. Kotak was therefore trading at 4 times price to book. However, post-COVID, especially post-2021, banking sector ROAs, you could say, improved by 10x, 0.1% ROAs are almost about 1% today. On the other hand, Kotak, you could say, improved by only 10%. Still the best ROA in the sector for any bank, for Kotak Bank, but relative improvement versus the rest of the sector is lower. Therefore, supremacy of ROAs versus the pre-COVID era goes down. And therefore, in hindsight, you could say that 4 times price to book coming down to a 2.5, 3 times more palatable price to book does make sense. And the same things actually happened with Bajaj Finance as well. 2022, 10 times price to book, coming down all the way to now about 5.5 times. In a matter of 2 years, price to book is down by about 50%. even though absolutely no change in return on assets. Return on assets are at an all-time high. They've never been better. Same thing with HDFC Bank. 2.5 times price to book now. Pre-COVID or around 2021 used to be about 4 times price to book. But absolutely no change on fundamentals. Return on assets at about 1.8, 1.9 times price to book. So all of these companies have completely, come off on price to book multiples because there has been lack of, you could say, differentiation. Uh, Also, there have been no asset quality issues for the sector, and as a result of that, we've seen multiples contract over the past 2 years. Hopefully, we are at the bottom of that cycle, and we'll cover that. How do these multiples stand or stack up versus some of the other lenders as we speak today? Now, coming to the portfolio update, I think now it's been about 18 months to about 2 years' time that we've been outperforming the Bank Nifty. 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 18 months, we've been doing better than the Bank Nifty. Even August is looking better than the Bank Nifty. However, we've still got ground to cover for the painful year of calendar year 2022, where all the PSU banks did exceedingly well. But HDFC Bank, Bajaj Finance, as you saw, were correcting or seeing a contraction of price to book multiples. Over the past 18 to 24 months, what's also happened is we've seen our insurance holdings, capital markets holdings, Prudent Corporate, the largest capital market holding that we've had done, do exceedingly well. And therefore, the portfolio has held up quite well over the past 18 to 24 months relative to Bank Nifty. So since inception, if you were to look at where we have made mistakes, actually our errors of, you could say, commission have been quite minimal. We made no money on HDFC AMC, but Awas is the one where we've lost money. We made a mistake in Awas, I would say, on buying it at 6-7 times price to book in 2021. So again, it's a mistake on entering pretty high on valuations. Otherwise, no errors of commission, I would say. Errors of omission, you could say, not owning some of the PSU banks, but I would say that's not something that we would do. We would continue to happily underperform rather than own something where we put to investing in leveraged entities. If you were to take a look at fundamentals versus the Bank Nifty, so KCP, we were to see 2018, 2019, 2020. Over these 3 years, the gap on loan growth was significantly higher versus the last years. This is again got to do with public sector banks coming back. Similarly, on gross NPAs. Gross NPAs of the KCP companies versus the Bank Nifty, there used to be about a 2x differential. Given that everything's coming down on asset quality, as in gross NPAs for the whole system have come down, this is also sort of converging. However, where the largest gap still remains is on return on assets. So there used to be a gap, there still continues to be a gap. Similarly, on return on equity. Return on equity at 18.5% for our portfolio companies has never been the case. They are sitting at the highest.
Apologies, I think there's a network issue that Tej might be experiencing.
Sorry.
Hi, Tej.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible.
Sure. Yeah. So I was saying that leverage was significantly higher earlier, and that's come back down. And despite that, return on equity has increased. On fundamentals, our portfolio continues to do well. Q1 FY 2025, which is the recent most quarter, again, we've done quite well, especially in the context of where earnings for the market has been at. We've done 33% PAT growth this quarter. Of that, if we remove 35% for HDFC Bank, because this has HDFC Limited, this does not have HDFC Limited in the base. Similarly, there has been a one-off for Kotak. Even excluding these two one-offs, this number is 20-21%. So 21% EPS growth for the portfolio in a year where the Nifty would broadly do about 14-15%. Even in this quarter, the Nifty would, I would say, would have done 14-15%. Easily outperforming the market on earnings. And I would say even on valuations, we're significantly cheaper than the market. This is in line with FY24, which, like I said, was an easier year, especially for lenders on earnings growth, because credit costs had still not started coming in, net interest margins had still not started coming down. So this year, I think in Q1 to do 20% PAT growth in a weak quarter, in a seasonally weak quarter, in a quarter where there were headwinds on heat waves, elections, so on and so forth, I think is a very good outcome. Coming to valuations, we've seen that for the sector, especially for high quality players, there has been a compression. So returns on assets have been at a 65% premium, which has been in line with history. We still continue to be about 60% better on return on assets versus the bank Nifty, but our premium valuation has completely gone off. So the valuation premium for owning a Bajaj Finance, a HDFC Bank, or a Kotak Bank used to be about 110%. So if the bank Nifty was trading at 2 times book, some of these stocks would say on average be trading at 4 times book. Today, as it happens, if the bank Nifty is trading at 2 times book, our portfolio companies with the same ROA 60% return on assets premium are trading at versus the 2-time book for the bank Nifty only at about a 2.5 times book. And therefore, we would say that it's one of the best times to own some of these quality names where the ROA premium has not gone off, but for various reasons, for various names, the valuation premium has completely gone off. As a result of that, if we would have seen an investor invest in Q1 of FY 2021, which is when we launched the fund, 100 rupees of EPS has tripled. It's become 300 rupees of EPS, but the stock price has only doubled. So the gap is pretty wide. And in a market like this, where there are not many things which are quality and which are available at reasonable valuations, this provides a good opportunity for quality-oriented investors. So today, the KCP portfolio is available at decent valuations for growth, which I would say is better than the market growth, and for returns on equity also better than market return on equity. So 20% PAT growth quarter after quarter, as you could see, 20% return on equity, again, consistent across quarters. For now, 25 times trailing PE multiples for the fund. You're getting, if you think of KCP as a stock, you're getting a stock which has 20% return on equity, very strong delivery consistently, 20% at compounding, available at almost market PE multiples. So with that, I would stop over here. Arjun, happy to take any questions.
Yeah, so I just want to remind all our participants that, if you have any question, kindly type into the Q&A box and we'll answer as many as we can. But just to kick off, Tej, the first question that's come in is around the benchmark. So Amit Kaur asks, should the benchmark change from Nifty Bank Index to the Nifty Financial Services Index?
Sure. So one is what the regulator wants us to do. PMS regulations say that the benchmark for any PMS has to be selected out of a broader benchmark. So even if it is a fund focused on financial services, we cannot have, because of regulatory reasons, Bank Nifty or Nifty Financial Services as a benchmark. We need to have either Sensex or Nifty or the BSE 500 as a benchmark. And therefore, we have chosen our benchmark to be the Nifty 50. Given that we've invested in financial services and we historically used to have Bank Nifty as a benchmark, we've over here shown our performance, the fund's performance versus the Bank Nifty, which consists of only banks, 5 banks who constitute about 80-85% of Bank Nifty. So SBI, Axis, ICICI, HDFC, and Kotak. Those 5 banks would make up about 80-85% of Bank Nifty. Nifty Financial Services, on the other hand, would also have about 75 to 80% comprising of these top 4 or 5 banks as its constituents. But just because we've historically been benchmarked to Bank Nifty before these regulations came into effect, we've chosen Bank Nifty over here.
Okay. So before I move on to the other questions, Tej, I just want if you could just highlight how we are now, how the portfolio is positioned for the next, say, couple of years, given the fact that you highlighted that at least in the banking sector, FY25 doesn't look that great, and there are going to be some headwinds. So let's say 12 months ago, what was the portfolio positioning, and how is it positioned now to ensure that we maintain that sort of gearing to a 20% kind of an earnings growth?
Sure. No, I think that's a great question. What we are seeing is that the bank being lack of deposit growth. And that lack of deposit growth is something which is now going on for about 2 years. That's impacted HDFC Bank the most, given that it has the highest need for deposits post the merger. So that's headwind number one. Headwind number two is net interest margins. In an environment where funding at the balance sheet is a constraint, and there is still no visible ebbing of competition, margins have come under pressure. So that's headwind number two. And the third headwind is finally normalization of credit costs, finally normalization of NPAs. And incidentally, we'll see all three of them hitting banks in FY25. So headwind number three, which is asset quality, is something that we are not very worried about given the quality of the banks that we've invested in. They're known for managing risks, managing asset quality. That we see as an upside if macro or if asset quality conditions worsen significantly from here. I think some of the price to book multiple premium that has contracted or has gone away for our banks will come back. So that's a headwind that we are okay living with, and therefore HDFC Kotak would stand to benefit. However, the headwinds of net interest margins and deposits are something that we worry about. Because of that, we would have, say last year, we would have about 50% allocated to banks. We've got that down to 40%. We moved that to something else. Chola is, say, for example, a company which has not seen headwinds on either credit cost or net interest margins or growth. So some of that has gone to Chola, which, as you could see on the table, delivered 30% EPS growth in Q1 this year, versus banks delivering in mid-single digits, adjusted for one-offs. So that's helped us. Second is moving to general insurance, ICICI Lombard. ICICI Lombard would have been 5-6% sort of allocation. That's gone on to become a 10% allocation for us. Again, as you could see, that's delivered 50% EPS growth in Q1. Extremely slow quarter for any industry. So that's helped us. And then Prudent Corporate is something which we could, of course, see given where the markets were. We moved some of the allocation to Prudent Corporate, again delivered 57%. So rebalancing within the portfolio to three things, which is delivered supernormal earnings growth, about 40-50% EPS growth versus mid-single digits, moving a 10% allocation to something which is delivered 50% versus something which would have delivered 5%, has helped the portfolio deliver maybe a couple of percentage points extra at a portfolio level on earnings growth, and therefore hopefully on performance as well. That's how we position the portfolio today. One mistake, that we would not want to make is move completely out of banks, just because we can see headwinds right now. Everyone can see those headwinds, and therefore banks are valued where they are. Therefore, banks are HDFC Bank or Kotak Bank are trading at 10 or 15-year lows on price to book multiples. We don't want to take an extreme stance of saying, let's go to 15% on banks and move to everything else. And that's something that we've been quite conscious about. We have taken a calibrated call. And banks have, private sector banks, like we discussed, have not done that poorly in the past 3 to 4 months. HDFC Bank is up 10%, Axis is up 10%, so on and so forth. Portfolio is up 13-14%. So yes, versus 13-14% for the portfolio, this could have been a drag, but they've not done that badly.
Right, thanks. Fair enough. So two people have asked, this question about Motilal Oswal, the early exit
Yeah.
in that particular stock. Why was that?
Sure, I think we would love to do more of these early exits if we make 50% in 3 months. So we bought the stock with some sort of margin of safety in mind, with a valuation in mind, and with numbers which we thought they could deliver, and therefore we would make money of the stock given where valuations were. Uh, Given that we had a target multiple that a cyclical broking plus investment banking plus institutional equities sort of business could command, and given that that sort of multiple Motilal Oswal reached in a period of 3 months of us buying the stock rallied about 50% in those 3 months. We thought that given that we have 5, 7 other names which are trading at reasonable valuations, which still have in our mind some amount of margin of safety, we exited Motilal Oswal and rebalanced within the portfolio, where we could see that if our valuation suggests that the stock should trade at 100 rupees, some other stock is trading at 70 rupees, rather buy more of that rather than Motilal, which is, in our mind, should be valued at 100 and was already trading at 110. And therefore, we took that conscious call of exiting Motilal Oswal. Otherwise, the business continues to do well. Some risks at the fringe on F&O regulations, some risks on market volatility, but otherwise, we have no concerns or specific issues with the business.
Right. Again, most of the questions are very stock specific. So the next one is on Kotak. Abhishek asks, while we've exited Kotak in CCP, we continue to hold it in KCP. Why the divergent approach between strategies when fundamentals remain good, as you pointed out? Underlying fundamentals are still strong. Why the differences?
Sure. No, again, I think a fair question. If we were to see, Kotak's ban, there is two impacts. Impact number one is on fundamentals. That impact is quite visible in Q1 numbers as well. Deposit growth was a bit lackluster. Unsecured loan growth, credit card growth has obviously fallen off a cliff, and it will take time for them to recover from that. What they've instead done is they've gone on an increased growth in secured products. They've gone on an increased corporate loan growth. So impact number one is on financials of Kotak, which is a fundamental impact. Impact number two is Kotak's always, seen to be a safe haven, a conservative bank, a safe haven on regulations, as well as a safe haven on asset quality and credit risk. The question in our mind when the ban came was always that, does that second part now go off? And that is a question which we evaluated from the perspective of both funds. The difference that CCP has is that it has a wider funnel of stocks available, given that it is not a fund which is focused only on financial services. So if not Kotak, if CCP finds a great capital allocator, a company which can grow at 18 to 20%, similar high governance standards, then CCP can invest in anything other than Kotak Bank. I would say Kotak is one of the most well-run banks, continues to be one of the most well-run banks, continues to be one of the most well-run financial services companies in India today. Irrespective of what's happened in the past 3 months on the ban. The ban by RBI does not change that. A ban by RBI does not change what Kotak's done over the past 30 years. And therefore, that divergence of approach that the question is alluding to is true. That divergence in approach is true, but that stems out of the fact of the divergence on the supply side of both the funds. CCP would have, say, 30 companies it could invest in, which would include non-financial names, companies which are not banks. Over here, we would have, instead of 30 names, we have 20 names in our coverage. I don't think we would have a company as high quality, as predictable as Kotak Bank, which could match the 18 to 20% growth with that low risk profile. And therefore, we continue to hold Kotak over here, but not in CCP.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. I mean, just to reiterate the fact that, each strategy, each portfolio, each strategy has its own, risk return objective. And as Tej rightly mentioned, CCP has a wider funnel. So, if there is another opportunity, knocking on the doors, to make its, to take its place within the portfolio, then it's a relative call, right? If Kotak's earnings growth is going to be subdued over the next year or so, and we have another opportunity available, to be included in the CCP portfolio, then it's a call that the fund manager can take. Whereas for KCP, because it's a sector-specific strategy, the funnel is much, it's not as wide as CCP. Moving on to the next question on Bajaj Finance, again from Abhishek. He asks, you've trimmed Bajaj Finance and added Bajaj Finserv. Can you explain the rationale behind it?
Yeah, sure. I think, Bajaj Finserv has got a lot of optionality in place now. First of all, as you would have seen, we moved, like I explained, away from banks, a bit of exposure away from banks to ICICI Lombard. And therefore, our exposure towards insurance companies is increased. One of the reasons is we think that someone like Bajaj General Insurance or an ICICI Lombard, which has been a conservative general insurance company over the last 2 to 3 years and has stayed away from intense pricing-based competition, is going to benefit immensely over the next couple of years. And the second reason is it's a bit of a technical reason, which is that IFRS accounting will come into place for insurance companies over the next 12 to 18 months. What that would do is it would show up the real accounts of insurance companies. What it would mean is ICICI Lombard, which on the screen you could see is a 16-17% return on equity company, would look like maybe a 25% return on equity company overnight. Because IFRS shows up an insurance company's accounts in line with what global insurance companies present their accounts as. Indian accounting standards today don't allow that. So we believe that moving to insurance companies like we've already done this year makes sense. And therefore, the move from Bajaj Finance to Finserv, wherein we don't move away from Bajaj Finance completely. Still 80% of Bajaj Finserv is Bajaj Finance. But we get that added optionality of the uptick that a quality general insurance company like ICICI Lombard is seeing, Bajaj General Insurance is seeing. On top of that, there is an added optionality of asset management, Bajaj Asset Management, that Bajaj is building, although extremely small. There is Bajaj Health as well, which is again extremely small. But these are optionalities which we would want to be a participant in while not going completely away from Bajaj Finance, which is a great company. Unparalleled NBFC, great management team, high quality. So Bajaj Finserv is 80% Bajaj Finance, 20% added optionality, which we believe is still not really well discovered by the market. And therefore, a combination of the two we thought is a better positioning in a year like FY25, where we've seen, like we said, already an increase in credit costs, margins under pressure for lenders, growth also maybe a bit challenged for unsecured, and therefore the move from Bajaj Finance to Finance.
Right. Next one is on HDFC Bank. So again from Abhishek, he says the management of HDFC Bank has admitted that the environment has changed considerably since the merger, and they see the recovery to pre-merger growth rate taking longer than anticipated, without giving a definite guidance. In such a scenario, what makes us, hold on to the stock at, at the allocation that we hold it at?
Sure. No, I think the merger, when it was envisaged, the deposit condition, liability, funding condition, liquidity for the banking sector was quite different. I don't think anyone could have envisaged that Indian banks would be in a place where they would be fighting for deposits so hard. It's never happened in the history of Indian banking so far. This is the first time that we've seen about an 18-month period where the fight for deposits is so hard. Now, to put some numbers and put some context on the table, right? In a period where deposit growth has been 11%, HDFC Bank, largest private sector bank, with now such a large balance sheet with HDFC Limited also combined, versus that 11% deposit growth YOY, HDFC Bank has still done, with all of its issues, 17.5%, despite being the largest private sector bank. So it's not that HDFC Bank is doing badly at all. It's doing 1.8x of the sector despite being the largest player in the sector. It's just that the merger unfortunately came about at a time when 6 months down the line, liquidity conditions completely changed. So 18x, 18%, 17% is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's the fastest amongst the private sector banks. ICICI Bank's not doing 17, 18. Axis Bank's not doing 17, 18. Kotak Bank is maybe, it's doing 17, 18, 19, 20 maybe, but it's about an eighth of the size of a HDFC Bank. And then it's doing 18, 19, 20. But HDFC Bank doing 18 at this scale is a good outcome. It's just that it needs to do 25, which I think it would have easily done had the liquidity environment, liquidity conditions been just a bit more conducive. Now, when does that change? I think it's a big macro call. We also don't know when does that change. But given that there is downside protection, very few places to go to in such a market where mid and small caps, we all know where the valuations are. Very few places where there is downside protection on fundamentals and on valuations. Therefore, we continue to have HDFC Bank in the portfolio.
That's really, really good points, Tej, that you make there. Again, the next one is very similar to the one on Kotak. This is on HDFC Life. We've reduced our weight in HDFC Life and in fact, exited from CCP. Hope it doesn't turn out like HDFC AMC for us, as insurance is an under-penetrated sector in India, and it's a great franchise. So yeah, I mean, the part of the question where reduced weight versus exit from CCP, the answer is similar to the one that Tej gave on Kotak, but just on HDFC Life,
Yeah, I think our concerns on HDFC Life stem from two things, which is where we reduced the weight. One was, regulatory changes. Life insurance sector has been prone to multiple regulatory changes. We think that risk is something that we cannot factor in maybe beyond a point. Surrender charges, last to last year changes on ULIP, last year changes on taxation of guaranteed products. All of these things, beyond a point cannot be quantified. And therefore, maybe that is something which can be only factored into valuations. Even if, say, HDFC Life becomes an extremely high return on equity company with high growth, it cannot command the valuation that a sector with very low regulatory intervention could command. That regulatory risk is what we factored in, which is what resulted into the exit in CCP, reduced weight in KCP. On the risk of it becoming like HDFC AMC, that risk at any given point in time, we've seen it play out in stock prices, not in businesses. For example, ICICI Lombard was trading at 1,000 rupees 1.5 years ago. And if someone would have said that, large company can it double in a period of 12 months, especially in a sector as boring as general insurance? Nothing much could change. Company with 60,000 crores of market cap, well discovered, a lot of institutional holding already. But in a year's time, the stock's up 80 to 90%. Similarly, we've seen that in Axis Bank trading at 600 rupees in 2022. Lots of concerns, all were valid concerns at that given point in time. But then 2 years hence, Axis is also doubled. All of the stocks that we see, which are the blues today, they've all gone through, each and every one of them have gone through the same concerns. Kotak at 1,500 rupees, the day the stock was down 10%, we would have, it could have been a red, I guess, on this chart. But there are points in time where each of them go through these things. It's just that how we navigate the cycles for each of these stocks, and we go overweight some of them, go underweight some of them. Say, for example, Prudent is what we've been discussing through the past hour, right? Which tripled since we bought it. We've been trimming the weight through those 2 years. It's been a large sort of contributor to returns. But can over the next 12 to 18 months it triple again? Can it halve again? It could go either ways. It's just that we need to play and position Prudent also as a part of the portfolio. That's what we keep doing.
Right. No, that's a fair point. And Tej, to your point on ICICI Lombard at 1,000 rupees, who would have thought a large cap stock can double in a year? Some people would come back and say, look at the PSU stocks. But I think we'll reserve our comments there. But very quickly, you also mentioned about Axis at 600. So there's a question on Axis. So the general view, because Sunil Gurbaksani says Axis has underperformed the Nifty for years together. Does it make sense to stay invested and move on to better options?
Yes, what we've been doing, Axis used to be a larger and larger weight, much larger weight. It's becoming a smaller and smaller weight in the portfolio. And the trade on Axis has always been, will it be able to narrow the valuation gap versus an HDFC, versus a Kotak, versus an ICICI, so on and so forth. As that gap has narrowed over the past 2 years, we've gradually got the Axis exposure now. Because we believe that in terms of quality of franchise, say an HDFC or an ICICI or a Kotak are superior companies. And therefore, that valuation gap narrowing down would mean that if we can get a better franchise at the same valuation, then why not switch? So that's how we think of Axis. If somehow the valuation gap opens up to a massive degree all over again, then maybe Axis becomes a larger weight. But today, Axis is a pretty small weight in the portfolio.
Right. I'll take the last question here, which is more sort of a broader sector level or macro level question. Why is a fall in deposit rate a big concern? Sorry, so it's from Mausam Mehta. Do you mean fall in deposit growth rate, or why is the fall in deposit rate a big concern? Isn't that common in developed economies due to low interest rates? Also, as financialization increases, this is bound to continue.
I think fall in deposit growth rates, if that's the question, it is concerning because, we've seen now about 2 years of loan growth exceeding deposit growth. And when that happens, banks find themselves in a tight situation on liquidity. As in, how are they supposed to fund their liability side of the balance sheet if they want to fund home loans, if they want to fund capex, if they want to fund consumer loans, MSMEs? There's no way to fund all of that if household savings are not going into deposits, because banks beyond a point can't borrow from anyone else. They are the sort of lenders to NBFCs. If banks can't raise deposits, if deposit growth is a challenge, what that would eventually mean is loan growth will slow down. It can't be that deposit growth is 6% and loan growth for the sector is 15%. What that would eventually also mean is pricing for loans will go up. Banks will, because money will become dearer for banks, they will have to charge more for that. And thirdly, lots of places would stop receiving bank funding. We would start seeing bank funding drying up for maybe say housing, maybe corporate loans where spreads are really thin, maybe even unsecured if we risk rises. So it's quite linked to sector loan growth. If deposit growth continues to be 8, 9, 10%, banking sector loan growth will come down to that level. Because beyond a point, you can't stretch balance sheets where this mismatch continues.
Right. Great. So that was the last question, Tej. Thanks for answering, all the questions, and to all our participants. If you have any follow-on questions, do write into us at invest@marcellus.in. And thank you for joining in, and look forward to interacting with you soon. Thank you so much. Thanks, Tej.
Great. Thank you.